The moment Zara stepped through the doors of Oakridge High, the whispers began. New kid, outsider, target. It was always the same at every school, and by now, Zara knew the routine. Keep your head down, speak only when necessary, and above all, never reveal what you're capable of. Not unless you have no other choice. If only the group of seniors watching from across the hall knew what those choices had cost at the last school. Zara adjusted the worn backpack strap digging into her shoulder and moved toward the administration office, feeling the weight of stairs like physical pressure against the back of her neck. 3 schools in 2 years. Nathan had promised this would be the last move. Zara wasn't holding out much hope. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. You must be Zara Foster, the secretary said, peering over rhinestone glasses. Just Zara, came the automatic correction. The secretary's lips pursed slightly. Well, just Zara. Here's your schedule and a map of the campus. First period starts in 15 minutes. I've assigned Olivia to show you around today. She gestured to a girl with bright smile and copper hair who'd materialized in the doorway. Welcome to Oakridge, Olivia said with genuine enthusiasm. Let me see your schedule. Oh cool, we have 3 classes together. As Olivia led the way through crowded hallways, Zara took mental notes of exits, open spaces, bottlenecks, old habits. The tour ended at Zara's assigned locker, where Olivia checked her phone and frowned. I need to run to the library before class. Will you be okay finding room 204? Zara nodded, and Olivia disappeared into the stream of students. The corridor was beginning to empty as the warning bell rang. Zara spun the combination lock, testing it twice before opening the locker. A shadow fell across the metal door. That's not your locker, a deep voice said. Zara turned to face a boy built like a linebacker, flanked by 2 equally imposing friends. The leader wore a Letterman jacket with Wilson stitched across the back, his dark hair styled in an expensive cut that suggested both money and vanity. Number 247, Zara said, pointing to the small metal plate on the locker. Assigned by the office. Wilson's eyes narrowed. That's been my extra locker since freshman year. Administration must have screwed up. One of his friends snickered. Yeah. They made 2 mistakes. Giving you Chad's locker and letting you in. Zara recognized the moment for what it was. A test. A claiming of territory. Nathan's words echoed in memory. Choose your battles carefully. Most aren't worth fighting. I'll request a different one, Zara said, closing the locker and stepping away. Chad's hand shot out, shoving Zara hard against the metal. That's right. And while you're at it, watch yourself in the halls. Accidents happen to people who don't pay attention. A familiar heat bloomed in Zara's chest, but years of training kicked in. Breathe, center yourself. This isn't the place. Got it, Zara replied, voice deliberately steady. Chad seemed disappointed by the lack of reaction. He knocked the books from Zara's hands before sauntering away with his friends, their laughter echoing down the corridor. Zara knelt to gather the scattered papers, noticing a pair of worn sneakers stopping to help. Sorry about that, said a lanky boy with glasses. Wilson and his crew are great at jerks. I'm Max. Zara, yeah, I heard we were getting a new student. Word travels fast here. Max handed over the last of the papers. Wilson's the wrestling team captain. His dad's on the school board, so he thinks he owns the place. It's fine, Zara said. Not my first welcome committee. Max raised an eyebrow. You move around a lot? You could say that. The final bell rang, and both hurried to their classes. Zara slipped into room 204 just as the teacher was closing the door, feeling the weight of 27 curious stares. Ah, our new student, the teacher said, a man in his 50s with a trim beard and intelligent eyes. I'm Mr. Daniels, why? Don't you introduce yourself? Zara stepped forward reluctantly. I'm Zara Foster, moved here from Sacramento. Not much else to tell. A voice from the back called out, What, you in witness protection or something? Scattered laughter followed as Zara took the only empty seat, coincidentally in front of Wilson, who wasted no time kicking the back of her chair throughout Mr. Daniels' lecture on Macbeth. By lunch, Zara had mapped most of the school and cataloged the social hierarchy. Chad and his crew, mostly athletes, occupied the central tables in the cafeteria. Olivia sat with the theater kids. Max was with a small group playing cards in the corner. Zara chose an empty table near the exit. Mind if I join? Max appeared. With a tray, Zara nodded to the empty chair. Free country. So what really brings you to our scenic middle-of-nowhere town? Max asked between bites of something the cafeteria claimed was lasagna. Zara poked at a similar substance. Nathan's job. He's a security consultant. Goes where the contracts are. And your mom? Not in the picture. Max seemed to sense the boundary. Well, Oakridge isn't so bad once you learn who to avoid. Like Wilson and his disciples, especially Marcus and Victor. Max nodded toward the two boys flanking Chad. Marcus is the one with the buzz cut. His dad's the police chief. Victor's the one with the face that looks like it's permanently smelling something bad. 3 of them have been terrorizing kids since elementary school. Why doesn't anyone stop them? Max laughed without humor. Wilson's dad donates the new football uniforms. Marcus's dad handles the teenagers being teenagers complaints. And Victor's just a psycho who enjoys making people miserable. Nobody wants to cross them. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of a chair scraping against linoleum. Chad Wilson stood at the head of Zara's table, his lunch tray in hand and a predatory smile on his face. Well, the new girl's made a friend. He set his tray down uninvited. Mind if we join you? This table's got the best view of the parking lot. Before Zara could respond, Chad deliberately knocked over her water bottle, sending liquid cascading across the table and onto her lap. The cold shock made her gasp, and several nearby students turned to look. Oh, clumsy me, Chad said loudly, his voice carrying across the cafeteria. Sorry about that, Foster girl. Accidents happen. The word Foster hung in the air like a weapon. Zara felt dozens of eyes on her as she stood, water dripping from her clothes. The familiar burn of humiliation crept up her neck. Here, let me help. Olivia appeared at Zara's side with a handful of napkins, shooting Chad a withering look. Real mature, Wilson. Chad shrugged, his smile never wavering. Like I said, accidents happen. Maybe our new friend should be more careful where she sits. Marcus and Victor laughed on cue, and Chad basked in the attention. Other students were openly staring now, some pulling out phones to capture the moment. Come on, Olivia said quietly, taking Zara's arm. Let's get you cleaned up. As they walked away, Chad's voice followed them. Welcome to Oakridge, Foster girl. Hope you like it here. In the bathroom, Olivia helped Zara dry off her clothes with paper towels. I'm sorry about that. Chad's a complete waste of space. It's fine, Zara said, though her hands were shaking slightly. I've dealt with worse. You shouldn't have to deal with any of it. Olivia's voice was fierce. He had no right to say that. About you being ... to say what he said. Foster, Zara finished flatly. Yeah, that's what I am. Not exactly a state secret. It's nobody's business but yours. Olivia met Zara's eyes in the mirror. And for what it's worth, I think you handled that better than most people would have. Zara almost smiled. Almost. Thanks. Want to sit with my friends this week? The theater kids are weird, but they're good weird. Maybe tomorrow, Zara said. I think I've had enough spotlight for one day. As they left the bathroom, Zara caught sight of Chad at his table, still holding court about the incident. The humiliation burned, but underneath it, something else was growing. something that tasted like resolve. The next morning, Zara arrived at school early, hoping to avoid another confrontation. She'd spent the night thinking about Chad's words, about the way he'd used her foster status like a weapon. Nathan had always told her that bullies fed on reactions, that the best defense was to give them nothing to work with. But as she walked through the main courtyard, she realized Chad wasn't interested in her reactions. He was interested in her humiliation. "Hey, foster girl." The voice carried across the courtyard, and Zara felt her shoulders tense. She turned to see Chad approaching with his usual entourage, but this time they'd gathered an audience. Students were stopping to watch, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. "I was thinking about our little chat yesterday," Chad said, his voice projected for maximum effect. "You know, about accidents and being careful. I realized I might have been unclear." Zara said nothing, but her stance shifted almost imperceptibly. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight evenly distributed. Old habits. "See, the thing is," Chad continued, circling her slowly, "this isn't just about respect. It's about knowing your place. And your place, foster girl, is at the bottom." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some students looked uncomfortable, but none moved to intervene. "This is your place now," Chad gestured broadly at the school around them. "And I'm the one who decides whether you get to stay or if you move on. To foster home number, what is it, 6, 7? The heat was building in Zara's chest again, but this time it felt different. Controlled, purposeful. Foster parents get tired of problem kids pretty quick, don't they? Chad's smile was cruel. Especially ones who can't defend themselves. From the edge of the crowd, Zara caught sight of a burly man in a coach's jacket, watching the interaction. With interest, his nameplate read, Harrison. "I'm not looking for trouble," Zara said quietly. "Too bad." Chad stepped closer. "Because trouble found you the minute you walked through those doors." He reached out to shove her again, but this time Zara was ready. She stepped aside smoothly, letting Chad's momentum carry him past her. He stumbled, nearly falling, and when he turned around, his face was flushed with anger. "You think you're tough?" he snarled. "You think moving around your whole life makes you some kind of fighter?" The crowd was getting larger now, phones appearing, as students sensed something big was about to happen. "Tell you what, foster girl," Chad said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Let's find out what you're really made of. After school, behind the gym, just you and me." Zara felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. She thought about Nathan's words about choosing battles, about staying under the radar. But she also thought about the way Chad had used her foster status to shame her, about the laughter that had followed her through the halls. "Okay," she said simply. "Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." Chad blinked, clearly not expecting such a calm response. "Okay, after school. Behind the gym." Zara's voice was steady, but there was something in her eyes that made Chad take a step back. "Just you and me." The crowd erupted in whispers and excitement. Chad tried to maintain his swagger, but for just a moment, Zara saw uncertainty flicker across his face. "Don't chicken out," he called as the warning bell rang and students began to disperse. "I'd hate to have to track you down." As the crowd melted away, Coach Harrison approached Zara. "You sure about this, kid?" "I'm sure," Zara said, shouldering her backpack. "Wilson's got 40 pounds on you and 4 years of wrestling." Zara looked up at the coach, and for a moment, he saw something in her eyes that made him nod slowly. "Just remember," he said quietly, "it's not about winning. It's about how you handle yourself." Word of the challenge spread through Oakridge High like wildfire. By final period, everyone knew about the after-school showdown behind the gym. Teachers tried to maintain order, but the buzz of anticipation was impossible to ignore. Zara sat through her classes in a strange state of calm. The knot of anxiety that had been living in her stomach since arriving at Oakridge was finally gone, replaced by something that felt like clarity. As the final bell rang, she made her way to her locker, aware of the whispers and stares following her through the halls. At her locker, she found Olivia waiting. "You don't have to do this," Olivia said urgently. "Chad's just a bully. He'll get bored and move on to someone else. Will he?" Zara asked, pulling out her backpack. "Or will he just keep pushing until I break? There has to be another way." Zara turned to face her new friend. "Liv, I've been in 6 different schools in 4 years. I've tried ignoring bullies. I've tried avoiding them. I've tried appeasing them. It never works. They just get worse. So, what's different this time? This time, I'm not running." The crowd behind the gym was larger than expected. Students who normally wouldn't give Chad Wilson or his antics a second thought had gathered to watch the spectacle. Some had their phones out, ready to capture whatever happened next. Chad was already there, stretching like he was preparing for a wrestling match. Marcus and Victor flanked him, hyping him up with loud encouragement. "I was starting to think you'd chickened out," Chad called as Zara approached. "I said I'd be here," Zara replied simply. She set her backpack down carefully and rolled her shoulders. The crowd formed a loose circle around them, with Coach Harrison watching from the edge, his expression unreadable. "Last chance to back down, foster girl," Chad said, bouncing on his toes. "I'd hate to send you to your next home with a black eye." Zara said nothing. She simply stood in the center of the circle, feet shoulder-width apart, hands relaxed at her sides. Her breathing was slow and controlled. "Your funeral," Chad snarled and charged. He came at her like a bull, all aggression and muscle, expecting to overpower her with sheer force. But Zara wasn't there when he arrived. She had stepped aside at the last second, so smoothly that it almost looked like Chad had missed on purpose. He spun around, confused and angry. "Stand still." This time he approached more cautiously, trying to grab her in a wrestling hold. But every time he reached for her, she seemed to slip away like water. Her movements were fluid, economical, almost effortless. The crowd was murmuring now, confused by what they were seeing. This wasn't the beatdown they'd expected. Chad's face was getting redder with each failed attempt. "Fight me," he shouted. "I am fighting you," Zara said calmly. Frustrated, Chad threw a wild punch. Zara caught his wrist, twisted slightly, and suddenly Chad was on the ground, his arm locked behind his back. The crowd gasped. "Yield," Zara said quietly. "Like hell." Chad bucked and struggled, but Zara's grip was like iron when he tried to. "Rise," she applied just enough pressure to make him gasp. "I said yield." After a moment, Chad tapped the ground with his free hand. Zara released him immediately and stepped back. Chad climbed to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. "You got lucky," he snarled. "Marcus, Victor, get her." But as his friend started forward, something in Zara's stance changed. She shifted into a fighting position that looked almost like a dance, her movements flowing like water, but with an underlying tension that promised violence. Marcus hesitated. Victor stopped entirely. "This isn't over," Chad said, backing away. "This isn't over by a long shot." "Yes, it is," Zara said simply. "It's over when I say it's over." The video was everywhere within hours. Someone had captured the entire fight on their phone, and by evening, "Foster Girl Takes Down Chad Wilson" was trending on every social media platform at Oakridge High. Zara sat in Nathan's kitchen, watching him make dinner while she told him about the day. He listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. "You used the arm lock I taught you," he said finally, setting a plate in front of her. "He left me no choice." "There's always a choice, Zara. The question is whether you made the right one." She pushed food around her plate. "I'm tired of running, Nathan. Tired of being the victim." "I know." He sat down across from her. "But power comes with responsibility. You can't unknow what you know." You can't unfeel what you've trained your body to do. I was careful. I didn't hurt him. I know. That's what makes me proud. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But this is just the beginning, you know that, right? Things are going to change at school now. He was right. The next morning, Zara walked into Oakridge High to find herself the center of attention in an entirely new way. Students who had never spoken to her before nodded respectfully as she passed. Others gave her a wide berth, uncertain how to process what they'd witnessed in first period. Mr. Daniels pulled her aside. "Heard you had some excitement yesterday," he said quietly. "It won't happen again," Zara replied. "I hope not. But if it does, you know you can talk to me, right? About anything." At lunch, Olivia found her at the same table by the exit. "You're like a celebrity," Olivia said, setting down her tray. "Everyone's talking about yesterday. I just want it to blow over." "Are you kidding? You took down Chad Wilson without breaking a sweat. That's not something people forget." Across the cafeteria, Chad sat with his friends, but the dynamic had shifted. He was no longer holding court. Instead, he seemed to be defending himself, his voice low and urgent. "He's telling everyone you cheated somehow," Olivia said, following Zara's gaze, "that you had help or something. Let him. Aren't you worried he'll try something else?" Zara considered this. "He can try. But I think he understands now that I'm not the same kind of victim he's used to." As if summoned by their conversation, Chad appeared at their table. But this time, he was alone, and his swagger was notably absent. "I want to talk to you," he said to Zara. "So talk." He glanced around the cafeteria, aware of the eyes on him. "Not here, after school. Behind the gym again?" Zara asked dryly. "No, somewhere private." Olivia started to object, but Zara held up a hand. "Fine, the library, after school." Chad nodded and walked away, leaving both girls staring after him. "What do you think he wants?" Olivia asked. "I think," Zara said slowly, "he wants to understand what just happened to his world." The library after school was nearly empty. Chad sat at a corner table, his usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like vulnerability. "You're not what I expected," he said without preamble as Zara sat down across from him. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone broken, I guess. Someone who would just take it." "Why?" Chad was quiet for a long moment. "Because that's what foster kids do, right? They take what's given to them, and they don't fight back because they're afraid of being moved again." "Where did you learn that?" "My dad. He's got opinions about people like you." "People like me?" "Yeah." Chad's face reddened slightly. "People who don't have real families. Who get shuffled around because nobody wants them." The words hung between them, ugly and honest. "Is that what you believe?" Zara asked. Chad looked down at his hands. "I used to. And now? Now I think maybe I don't know anything about people like you." He looked up at her. "How did you do that? Yesterday, I mean. You moved like ... like you've done this before." "I have." "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Zara was quiet for a moment, weighing her words. "My first foster home. The dad was a former Marine. He taught me basic self-defense because he said the world was dangerous for girls like me." "Girls like you?" "Girls without families to protect them." Chad absorbed this. "And the other homes. Different skills. Karate, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo. Turns out a lot of people who take in foster kids have their own ideas about how to make us strong." "So you're like, actually trained?" "I'm actually trained." Chad leaned back in his chair, processing this information. "I made a mistake, didn't I?" "You made a lot of mistakes." "I mean about you, about what you are." Zara studied his face. "What? Am I, Chad?" "I don't know. But you're not what I thought." "You're not broken." "No," Zara agreed. "I'm not broken. I'm just tired of pretending to be." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. "What happens now?" Chad asked finally. "Now you decide what kind of person you want to be," Zara said. "And I decide whether I trust you to be that person." As she stood to leave, Chad called after her. "Zara?" She turned back. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "I said about foster kids. About you." "I know," she said simply, and walked away. Outside the library, Olivia was waiting. "How did it go?" she asked. "Better than expected," Zara said. "I think he's starting to understand." "Understand what?" "That strength isn't about who you can beat down. It's about who you choose to lift up." As they walked toward the parking lot, Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the possibility of belonging. Not just surviving, but actually belonging somewhere. It was a dangerous feeling. But for the first time in her life, Zara thought she might be strong enough to handle it. 2 weeks after the fight, Zara's life at Oakridge had settled into a new rhythm. Students no longer whispered about her in the halls, though she still caught the occasional curious glance. Chad kept his distance, but his hostility had been replaced by something that looked almost like respect. It was during a quiet evening at home that Nathan dropped the bombshell. "I got a call from your caseworker today," he said, setting down his coffee cup. "There's been some news about your biological family." Zara's hand froze halfway to her mouth, fork suspended in midair. "What kind of news?" "Your father was released from prison last month. He's been asking about you." The words hit like a physical blow. Zara set down her fork, her appetite completely gone. "What does he want?" "Visitation rights. He's claiming he's turned his life around." "And what did you tell them?" Nathan's expression was grim. "I told them that decision is yours to make. You're 16, Zara. You have a voice in this." That night, Zara lay awake staring at the ceiling, memories she'd tried to bury clawing their way to the surface. Her father's voice, slurred with alcohol. The sound of breaking glass. Her mother's tears. The night the police came and took her away. The next morning at school, she was distracted, distant. Even Olivia noticed. "You okay?" Olivia asked as they walked to lunch. "You seem off." "Family stuff," Zara said simply. "Want to talk about it?" Before Zara could answer, Chad appeared beside them. Over the past weeks, he'd been making tentative overtures toward friendship, though Zara remained cautious. "Hey," he said, falling into step with them. "You hear about the new guy?" "What new guy?" Olivia asked. "Transfer student. Ryan something. Word is he got kicked out of his last school for fighting." Zara's attention snapped back to the present. "Fighting?" "Yeah. Marcus heard from his dad that this kid hospitalized 2 students at his old school. They're only letting him in here because his mom works for the district office." They entered the cafeteria to find a crowd gathered around one of the central tables. At the center sat a boy who looked like he'd been carved from granite, his arms covered in tattoos that the school dress code somehow hadn't caught yet. "That's him," Chad said quietly. "Ryan Torres." As if sensing their attention, Ryan looked up, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Zara. His smile was predatory, and when he stood, the conversations around him died. "You must be the famous foster girl," he said, his voice carrying across the cafeteria. "Heard you think you're some kind of fighter." The lunchroom fell silent. Zara felt every eye in the room on her, waiting for her response. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said. "That's funny, because trouble's looking for you." The confrontation with Ryan had been avoided that day, but the tension in the school was palpable. Students whispered about the new kid and his reputation, about what might happen when he finally crossed paths with Zara. It was Coach Harrison who suggested the solution. "You ever think about teaching?" he asked, approaching Zara after gym class. "Teaching what?" "Self-defense. I've been watching you in class, and you've got skills that could help other kids." Zara considered this. I'm not sure I'm the teaching type. Maybe not. But you're the type who stands up for people who can't stand up for themselves. That's rarer than you think. That evening, Zara discussed the idea with Nathan. It could be good for you, he said. And good for the other kids. You know better than most what it's like to feel powerless. What if I mess up? What if I teach them wrong? Then you'll learn from it. That's what teaching is, Zara. Learning alongside your students. The first self-defense class was held in the school gym after hours. Zara had expected maybe 5 or 6 students to show up. Instead, she found nearly 20 kids waiting for her, including some faces she recognized as frequent targets of bullying. "Okay," she said, suddenly nervous. "I guess we should start with basic stances." Among the students was Max, who'd been one of the first to befriend her. There was also a freshman girl named Emma, who'd been picked on for her weight, and surprisingly, Marcus, Chad's former sidekick. "You sure about this?" Zara asked Marcus quietly. "Chad's not the same person he was," Marcus said. "Made me realize maybe I don't want to be either." The class went better than expected. Zara found herself drawing not just on her martial arts training, but on the emotional lessons she'd learned from years of being vulnerable. The first rule of self-defense, she told the group, isn't about fighting. It's about awareness. Know your surroundings. Trust your instincts. And remember that the best fight is the one you never have to have. By the end of the session, even, the quietest students were asking questions, practicing moves, finding their voice. "Same time next week?" Emma asked as they were cleaning up. "Same time next week," Zara confirmed. As the students filed out, Olivia approached her. "You were amazing," she said. "I've never seen Emma speak up like that. She just needed to know she had permission to be strong." "Is that what you needed?" Zara considered the question. "I needed to know that being strong didn't mean being alone." The self-defense classes had been running for 3 weeks when Ryan Torres decided to make his move. He'd been watching, waiting, and apparently, he didn't like what he saw. Zara was demonstrating a basic escape technique when Ryan appeared in the gym doorway, his presence immediately shifting the energy in the room. "So this is where the wannabe fighters gather," he said. Strolling into the gym uninvited, the students instinctively moved closer to Zara, forming a protective circle around her. "This is a closed class," Zara said evenly. "Is it? Because I heard you were teaching self-defense, and I've got some thoughts on your technique." Ryan moved to the center of the mat, his movements fluid and predatory. "See, the problem with what you're teaching these kids is that it's soft. Real fighting isn't about pretty moves and controlled breathing. It's about hurting people before they hurt you." "That's not what we're about here," Zara replied. "No, then what are you about?" "We're about protecting ourselves and others. We're about building confidence and strength. We're about knowing when to fight and when to walk away." Ryan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the gym walls. "Walk away? Is that what you did when Chad Wilson came for you? Because from what I heard, you put him on his ass." "I defended myself, and I respect that. But you're teaching these kids the wrong lesson. You're teaching them to hold back, to show restraint. In the real world, restraint gets you killed." The students were looking back and forth between them, tension thick in the air. "I think you should leave," Zara said. "Or what? You'll make me?" The challenge hung in the air, like a gauntlet thrown down. Zara felt the familiar heat building in her chest, but this time it was different. This time, she wasn't just defending herself. She was defending her students, her purpose, her belief that strength could be gentle. "If I have to," she said quietly. Ryan's smile widened. "Now we're talking. Tomorrow after school. Behind the gym, just like old times." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. "And bring your little disciples. They should see what real fighting looks like." After he left, the gym was silent for a long moment. "You don't have to do this," Emma said finally. "We can tell Coach Harrison. Get him suspended." "He'll just find another way," Zara replied. "Bullies always do." "So what do we do?" Zara looked around at the faces of her students, seeing her own past reflected in their eyes. "We show him that. Strength isn't about what you can destroy. It's about what you can protect." The crowd behind the gym was larger than it had been for her fight with Chad. Word had spread through the school like wildfire, and students who'd never shown interest in the self-defense classes now pressed forward to watch. Ryan was already there, warming up with an intensity that spoke of serious training. His movements were sharp, aggressive, designed to intimidate. "Brought your fan club, I see," he said as Zara approached. "They're here to learn," she replied. "Then let's give them a lesson they won't forget." The fight began differently than the one with Chad. Ryan didn't charge blindly. He moved with calculated precision, testing Zara's defenses, looking for weaknesses. He was skilled, Zara realized. Possibly more skilled than she was in pure technique. But as they circled each other, she noticed something else. His style was all aggression, all attack. He'd been trained to hurt, not to protect. When he finally struck, it was with the intention of ending the fight quickly. But Zara wasn't there to meet his attack. She flowed around it, redirected it, used his own momentum against him. "Stand still and fight," Ryan snarled, frustrated by her elusive style. "I am fighting," Zara said, echoing her words from the fight. "With Chad, I'm just not fighting your fight." The dance continued, Ryan growing more aggressive, more desperate, while Zara remained calm, centered, waiting for the right moment. It came when Ryan overextended himself, putting too much power into a strike that would have seriously injured her if it had connected. Zara stepped aside, caught his arm, and in one fluid motion, brought him to the ground. But instead of applying pressure, instead of dominating him, she simply held him there. "Yield," she said quietly. "Never," Ryan spat, struggling against her. "Hold." "You're not listening," Zara said, her voice carrying to the watching crowd. "I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to teach you." "Teach me what?" "That strength isn't about who you can defeat. It's about who you choose to protect." For a moment, Ryan stopped struggling. In the silence, Zara continued. "I know what happened at your last school. I know why you're here. But hurting people won't. Make your own pain go away." Something in Ryan's expression shifted. The aggression didn't disappear, but it was joined by something else. Something that looked almost like vulnerability. "You don't know anything about me," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I know you're angry. I know you're scared. I know you think if you're strong enough, mean enough, nobody will ever hurt you again." Ryan's struggle slowed, then stopped. "I know because I used to think the same thing," Zara continued. "But real strength isn't about being the biggest predator in the room. It's about being the one who protects the prey." She released him and stepped back, offering him a hand up. For a long moment, Ryan stared at her outstretched hand. Then, slowly, he took it. 3 months later, Zara stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting her cap and gown. Graduation was still 2 years away, but Oakridge High had decided to honor her with a special recognition for her contributions to the school community. The self-defense classes had grown into a full program, with Coach Harrison as the official sponsor and Zara as the student instructor. Ryan had become one of her most dedicated students, channeling his aggression into protective instincts. "You ready for this?" Olivia asked, appearing beside her in the mirror. "As ready as I'll ever be." They walked to the auditorium together, where the entire school had gathered for the assembly. As Zara took her place on the stage, she saw familiar faces in the crowd, her students beaming with pride. Coach Harrison nodding approvingly. Even Chad, who'd become an unlikely ally in her mission to change the school culture. When Zara Foster first arrived at Oakridge High, Principal Davis began, she was just another new student trying to find her place. But what she found instead was her purpose. The speech continued, but Zara's attention drifted to the back of the auditorium, where Nathan sat with tears in his eyes. Beside him was her caseworker, and surprisingly, a woman she didn't recognize. After the ceremony, as students filtered out, Nathan approached with the stranger. "Zara, I'd like you to meet someone," he said. "This is Dr. Sarah Chun. She runs a nonprofit that teaches self-defense to at-risk youth." "I've been hearing amazing things about your work here," Dr. Chen said, shaking Zara's hand. "I wondered if you might be interested in expanding your reach." "What do you mean?" "I mean taking your program to other schools, other communities. There are a lot of kids out there who could benefit from what you're teaching." Zara looked around the auditorium, seeing her students cleaning up, seeing the confidence in their postures, the strength in their voices. "I'd like that," she said later. That evening, Zara sat on her bedroom floor, looking through a box of old photos Nathan had given her. Pictures from her various foster homes, documents from her past, pieces of a life she'd tried so hard to forget. At the bottom of the box was a letter from her biological father, the one Nathan had given her months ago. She'd never opened it, too afraid of what it might contain. Now, she picked it up and carefully tore open the envelope. The letter was short, written in shaky handwriting. "Zara, I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness. I know I failed you as a father, and I'm sorry for that. But I want you to know that I'm proud of who you've become. I've been following your story, and I can see that you're strong in ways I never was. I don't expect you to want to see me. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry and that I love you. Your father." Michael. Zara read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it back in the box. She wasn't ready to forgive him yet. Maybe she never would be. But for the first time, she felt like she could carry his mistakes without being crushed by them. Nathan appeared in her doorway. "How are you doing, kiddo?" "I'm good," she said and meant it. "I'm actually good. What's next for you?" Zara thought about Dr. Chun's offer, about the students who were counting on her, about the girl she'd been when she first walked through Oakridge's doors. "I want to keep teaching," she said. "I want to help kids like me learn that they don't have to be victims, that they can be strong without being cruel." "And what about your father's letter?" "I'll think about it, but not today. Today, I want to focus on moving forward." Nathan smiled and ruffled her hair. "I'm proud of you, Zara, not just for what you've accomplished, but for who you've become." As he left, Zara stood and walked to her window, looking out at the quiet street. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new students, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The foster girl who had once been afraid of her own shadow had become a protector of others. The victim had become a victor. And most importantly, the girl who had spent her life running from her past had finally learned to stand and fight for her future. In the reflection of her window, Zara saw not the broken child she'd once been, but the strong, confident woman she was becoming. And she smiled, knowing that the best was yet to come. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.